Hello again, folks. On Treasuring Jesus, we've been spending a certain amount of time in Luke's Gospel in chapter 22. Up until now, we've heard about the plot against Jesus. We've seen how Judas was aiding and abetting the Pharisees in their plans. We've been at the Passover feast in the upper room, and we've seen also the depiction of Jesus' suffering and death and the symbols of bread and wine. And we've also seen his sombre revelation of the fact that there is a traitor amongst them. When you read all of that, you can hardly credit what comes next. Chapter 22, and we read from verse 24. But there was also rivalry among them as to which of them should be considered the greatest. And he said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those who exercise authority over them are called benefactors. But not so among you. On the contrary, he who is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he who governs as he who serves. For who is greater, he who sits at the table, or he who serves? Is it not he who sits at the table? Yet I am among you as the one who serves." Seriously? At this point, the disciples were debating who will be the greatest? Now? At this moment? It seems hardly credible, doesn't it? What were they thinking? Perhaps they were looking ahead, imagining a time when the Romans would be gone and their master would be the one in charge. Naturally, they would be up there with him. But who would be in what position? I wonder if you remember how, aided and abetted by their mum, James and John tried to push to the front of the queue. But Jesus was very firm in his response, wasn't he? Listen, guys, you can look and see how other people get ahead in this life, but that's not the way for you. Yours must be an attitude of humble service, which, as it happens, is where I'm coming from. One Bible commentator explains what it might have been that provoked the discussion. Listen to what he says. "It's one of the most poignantly tragic things in the gospel story that the disciples could quarrel about precedence in the very shadow of the cross. The seating arrangements at a Jewish feast were very definite. The table was arranged like a square with one side left open. At the top of the square in the centre sat the host. On his right sat the guest of first honour. On the left the second guest, then on the right again, and then on the left, and then on the right, and so on around the table. The disciples had been quarrelling about where they were to sit, for they hadn't yet rid themselves of the idea of an earthly kingdom. If you've ever been in the school playground, standing in line as teams were picked for a game of football, you may know that sinking feeling when it seems that everybody else is being chosen ahead of you. I speak from experience. But amongst Christian believers, it's not the place for jockeying for position in church or trying to accumulate votes for your motion at the church meeting. No, brothers and sisters, we follow one who did not please himself, one whose attitude of service took him to the cross. Hands up, those who will enthusiastically volunteer for humble service. Want to be first in that queue? Friends, the way up is down. Bow with me in prayer. Father, please deliver us from selfish ambition, even in the church and in your service. Help us instead to follow our loving Master, the one who came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. And we bring our prayer in his worthy name. Amen. Do appreciate you joining me once again today. And until next time, keep treasuring Jesus.